All right. Well, I just want to welcome Jon Sipko to our next session here right now. John's going to talk to us a little bit more about fishing in some of the bigger lakes and some of the bigger waters that we have out here in Ontario. And I met John a few summers ago when he purchased an X20 off of us out of our Barrie store. And obviously, to me, as an outsider looking in on his fishing experiences, he seemed to take what I thought was more of a recreational fisherman, and has expanded that into quite a nice setup on his X20. And I'm getting some great pictures from him throughout the summer and from some of his big water escapades. So I just wanted to welcome John and learn a little bit more about his experience and some of the best practices that we can all learn for using our boats safely in some of that bigger water. So thank you, John.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me. The boat's been since we've had it in August of 2020. It's been a great addition to the family, and certainly for fish in the water as well too. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Maybe tell me a little bit about your background, John.
Sure. Well, I mean, I grew up on the West Coast, so I've only recently, well, I should say recently, in the last 5 years, moved to Ontario. So growing up on the West Coast, I'm used to fishing on the Pacific Ocean, Georgia Strait, west coast of Vancouver. Grew up around water all my life, so I've been around boats since I was just a young kid. But when I came out here to Ontario, and the opportunity to go out with I got the opportunity to go out with a buddy of mine on Lake Ontario and go fishing for salmon, and I was just like, excuse me, wait a second, there's Pacific salmon in the Great Lakes. My girlfriend and her kids they love the water as well too, so it was just a natural fit for us to pick up the boat. So it was.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense how you can be less intimidated by some of our bigger waters out here when you grow up maybe on the coastal life, and that makes a lot more sense to me now, how you're so adventurous out here potentially.
Yeah, but you know what? Don't sell the Great Lakes short, because I'll tell you what, they can be angry, and they can be dangerous, and you got to pick your days and be equipped properly to be out there on those big water days, because it can definitely bite you.
Yeah, so maybe talk to me about that purchasing decision before we get into some of the bigger water fishing. What led you to Legend? What led you to our store there in Barrie? And how did you help yourself zero in on that was going to be the perfect boat for you?
I kind of knew I wanted to have something that was capable for the family, and yet also convertible for fishing. So, I looked at the different options out there, and I didn't want something that was all vinyl, because I wanted it to be comfortable on the kids' feet, and the X20 just made sense. I mean, it's got carpet everywhere, and when you fold the back deck down, it's soft on the feet. It's not it's not hard. It's not as slippery. It's nice when you're getting in and out of the boat and into the water. It's great for the kids. But if I want to fish, I can fold that back deck down, and I got a ton of space back there.
Absolutely.
that I can. So it's and I can take the cushions out of the front and make it a little bit more usable for fishing, a little bit more firm underfoot. But if I want to, I put the cushions in up front, and we can sit 4 people up front comfortably, and the kids can be in the back, or they can be in the water, and so the boat just made sense. Now, having 4 kids, I needed as big a boat as I could possibly get. So the X20 just made absolute sense. So we can take the 6 people plus a couple of guests, and it's ideally suited for our needs and for what we use it for. So, I mean, knowing that I was kind of looking at the 20, we arranged to stop in at the showroom in Barrie, and I had a chance to chat with you there and take a look at the boat, and I think I got extremely lucky, because you had one available, and I think we probably would have been waiting until the next spring if I hadn't showed up when I did. So kind of fortuitous in the timing of my exploration. And then when we decided on exactly what we wanted for engine and equipment on it, you guys in the office there you came through, and you hit the ball out of the park in under 3 weeks. I mean, literally, I think it was under 3 weeks by the time we signed on the dotted line and picked the boat up and took it to Grand Bend, and it was fantastic. So.
I also wanted to thank you for the great contributions that you do as part of our Legend Fans owners group. I'm seeing such great content from you, Jon, and such great advice, and I don't think you've missed the mark yet. So maybe talk to you a little bit more about how you became so educated on those things, the setups, the vessel view, the kickers, the trolling motors. How can we learn the information that you've learned in such a short amount of time?
You know what? It's a lot of watching videos and using tools like the Legend Owners Group. There's just like there's many ways to skin a cat, there's many ways to set up your boat, and it all depends on how you want to use it and what's important to you. You can go so far one way and be so technologically advanced and automated, or you can just do it simple. You don't have to do anything over the top to get out and get fishing on big water. I mean, there are things you can do to increase your success, but it's really about learning where you're going to be fishing, the target areas you're going to be fishing, equipping your boat for those target areas, for the target fish that you're going to go after, and just going out there and doing it. And paying attention to, you pay attention to the big details, but then there's the little details as well too that you pay attention to. One of the big things that I started to realize is that all these charter captains that work out of Lake Ontario and Lake Huron and Lake Erie, they're a wealth of information, and sometimes people are afraid to approach them and talk to them, but they're people just like you and me, and they got a wealth of information because they do this stuff every day.
Right.
And they know what's working. When I first started fishing here, I brought a lot of things from the West Coast, and what works out on the West Coast doesn't necessarily work in the Great Lakes. So you've got to modify it. And I had the fortune to connect with a guy, Mark Kulak from Kings Landing Sport Fishing here. And he's a great guy, very knowledgeable. He also fished on the West Coast in Vancouver, in my hometown, and he knows the West Coast. And I got a chance to go out fishing with him last year in the Legend, and had him show me what he does, but tailor it to my boat. And I tell you what, I learned more in 5 hours with him on the water than I did fishing all last season by myself. So it's not just tools like Facebook groups or videos, it's actual experience. And you tell a guy that you want to go out fishing on your boat, you want to take him out on your boat and go fishing, and you want him to show you what he does, it works. It really works, because I changed a bunch of stuff right at the end of last season, and I put more fish in the boat after my session with him than I can count. I mean, literally, I would come home with a box full of fish every day.
Wow. And where do you find yourself splitting your time? Where are you doing the majority of your boating and fishing now?
The majority of the fishing I'm doing is out of Bluffers Park.
Okay.
On Lake Ontario. But anywhere along the North Shore is easy for me to access. The boat, being configured the way it is, I can trailer it behind my vehicle. And in fact, for most of the summer last year, it lived in my driveway, because I'd get up in the morning and I'd look at the waves and the weather and see where the best conditions were going to be. Right. And I'd go there.
Wow. I guess we should digress a little bit here and let the folks know that your full-time position and your trade is a pilot. So maybe that's also giving you that calming nature of knowing if you have an equipment failure in the middle of the lake, it's potentially not as disastrous as an engine shutting off 20,000 feet above.
Yeah, usually we have two engines, and fortunately, on the Legend now, I do have two engines. I have a kicker, and that's part of getting the right setup for where you're going to be fishing. I mean, I have a 150 4-stroke on the back, absolutely reliable, bulletproof. I mean, I've not had any issues other than an initial false start, but that was a harness. It wasn't the engine. But I've got my 15 EFI kicker, and it's not a remote start. It's not battery powered. It's a manual start, and I wanted it specifically for that reason, because I want the ability to know that I can easily just pull the cord twice and the thing starts. I mean, it's bulletproof. Like literally, I pump the ball on the fuel line and go. Electronic wise, fishing, putting the right gear and finding the fish is important. So I've got a Humminbird Helix 8 on the console for sonar, and it's a full 2D down imaging and side imaging capable as well too. Although when I'm fishing for salmon, I don't use down imaging or side imaging. I'm just using 2D. So pretty straightforward, maybe a little overkill, but there's the option to transition into different types of fishing. So if I'm going for, any smaller species in the smaller lakes, I can easily just take my boat and go there. I don't have an issue, as I can take everything off and put it in the back of my car and, hide the rods in the storage locker in the middle of the boat. And we can go out and have a day on the water and use the tube and the ski and the wakeboard and stuff like that. And it's phenomenal.
Maybe talk to me, obviously, like we said, in the pilot trade, obviously safety is number one. So maybe relate some of the safety best practices or what we need to do to prepare ourselves for a full day of, being out in the water, specifically in some of the bigger water and, unpredictable weather that we know that can arise.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you want to be doing is you want to be looking at the forecast. And one of the tools I use is the NOAA site, the Great Lakes forecasting site. It gives you basically forecast of wind and waves and water height for the entire Great Lakes. We have an amazing tool in that, but there are other apps out there as well too. You can use whatever works for you. I like the NOAA site. I go to one site, so when I go to Grand Bend, I know I'm looking at the same kind of information that I would be seeing as what I look at when I go to Lake Ontario. It also pulls in different data from the various buoys on the lakes. So we've got the Pickering or the Ajax buoy, and then the Grimsby buoy. So you can kind of get a sense of what the conditions are going to be out on. So that's the first thing that I look at. From a boat perspective, before I go out the night before, I'll make sure everything's in the boat, and I've got everything that I need. I've got all my life jackets for the kids. I've got my fire extinguisher. I've got my gas is full. My fluid levels in my engines are checked. I've got all the safety gear that I need, as mandated by transport for the size of boat, and from perspective of having too much gear, for when it comes to safety, you really can't have too much gear. So
what was your favorite day on the Legend so far? Do you have that one shining day or moment, whether that's fishing or with the family, that you can point to and say, this is the reason I did it all?
The first season we got the boat, we took that picture, and I think you've seen it in the Legend Boat Owners feed. Of the six of us standing on the boat. We were staying in Grand Bend, and we just starting to spend time out on the lake and with friends, and they would go down to the Pinery and they would pull up on a sandbank, and from the West Coast, you don't spend a lot of time in Georgia Strait or the ocean. It's cold, like it's sub 50 degrees. Whereas, Lake Huron and Lake Ontario, they can get to be 70 degrees, which is manageable and tolerable for, an extended period of time. But pulling up on a sandbank and dropping the anchor and just sitting in the boat and swimming off the boat it's been a highlight. I mean, we love doing it. We love sitting there and, having the boat be anchored, or at the end of the day, at the end of the night, as the sunsets go down out there, we'll just whip out in the boat out into 30 or 40 feet of water and jump in and relax, and the kids can swim and they have a great time. I mean, they love it out there, and we'll sit there literally in our life jackets. I mean, we're not wearing them on our shoulders. We're sitting our legs through the armholes, but we're just sitting there
Bobbing.
and chilling out. So it's phenomenal.
That's amazing to hear, and that's why we do what we do. And sometimes we forget those memories that we get to create here, working in Legend each and every day. But quite honestly, that's what we do, and we need those stories to keep propelling us and making sure that we're getting as many families on the water as we can, because it's important to us, and it's amazing to hear.
Awesome.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate the time, and like I said, we'll do this again.
Sounds good.
Perfect.